Does mulch really stop weeds? And how effective is it? In this video, I'm going to show you two different kinds of mulch that I use in my garden, and I'm going to show you the difference with and without mulch. You'll be very surprised at what you see. This is one of my newer garden beds. It's been in place for about 3 years. And as you can see, it's planted mostly with different kinds of hellebores. And here I have what's known as the green dragon. It makes these really weird shaped flowers. Now there are two kinds of green dragons. This is the Asian one, and it's actually fairly invasive. Like, I've got lots of seedlings coming here. And then there's the North American one. And when I purchased this plant, I thought it was a North American one. Now if you want to know the difference between these two, come over to my blog, gardenfundamentals.com, and I did a post recently to compare the two types and help you identify which is which. I'm going to end up taking this one out because it's too weedy. Anyways, back to the mulch situation. This bed gets weeded maybe once or twice throughout the season, and we haven't touched this one in at least 3 weeks. If you have a look at the ground here, except for the seedlings from this green dragon, there's a little bit here. I got a little bit here, but there's really not much there. The mulch here is wood chips, and for ornamental beds, this is what I really prefer. If you put down a layer that's 2 to 3 inches thick, you'll get almost no weeds, and any that are there are usually easy to pull because the soil stays nice and moist. I wouldn't garden without wood chips in my ornamental bed. This is one of my rock garden beds. Been here for quite a while. Got a lot of great plants in here, and I usually mulch it with wood chips as well. But I've had trouble getting some this year, so it hasn't been mulched at all. We weed this bed about every 3 weeks. And now have a look at the weeds that are in here. That's a weed. Crabgrass. Another crabgrass. Lots and lots of clover. Up here we got a euphorbia, that's a weed. We have purslane, that's a weed. Another grass. Some more clover up here. A different kind of clover here. Quite honestly, if we didn't weed this every 2 or 3 weeks, it would all be weeds here. It's just so much more work to garden without a good mulch on top. I'm now in my vegetable garden, and this is the entryway, and I just have soil here. There's a little bit of mulch, but not much. I mulch my beds more than I mulch this walkway. Everything that's green here are weeds, and I've been pulling them out throughout the year, but they just keep coming back. There's grass, there's these other things, there's clover. Lots and lots of weeds. Now let me show you a spot that's only a couple feet away and show you the difference with mulch. The camera is standing right where you just seen all those weeds. And this is another pathway through my vegetable garden. And I have plants on either side, mostly tomatoes here. There's no weeds here, and I don't weed this section. Let me correct myself, there are some weeds. There's one here is a clover. There's a grass here, another clover. A few little weeds here. The reason we have weeds here is that the mulch layer was too thin. Light was getting to the soil, which allowed the seeds to germinate and start growing. Over here, the mulch layer is quite a bit thicker. It's not real thick, but that's enough to stop all the weeds. So here, there's no weeds. Here we have a few weeds. But you can see inside my tomatoes here, there's no weeds. It's now the middle of July. I haven't weeded this bed once all year, and I won't have to. As long as I keep mulch there, the weeds aren't a problem. Not only that, but this mulch keeps moisture in the soil. We've had an unusual year. It seems to rain every 3 or 4 days just enough to keep the soil moist. So I haven't watered these tomatoes all season. That's very unusual for me. But even when we have a dry year, I don't water very often because this stuff keeps the soil moist. The other reason I like to use mulch is because it's slowly decomposing and building better soil. Now I use two kinds of mulch in my gardens, straw and wood chips. Why do I use two? Both of these materials have a very high carbon content. So for them to decompose, microbes have to get nitrogen from somewhere else to help in the decomposition process. They get that nitrogen from the soil. As long as the mulch is sitting on top of the soil, the nitrogen is only taken from the top couple millimeters of soil. That doesn't affect plant roots. But if we take this high carbon material and bury it in the soil, then the nitrogen comes from the soil right where the roots are, and that's not a good thing. I don't like using wood chips in my vegetable garden because you're always digging around. I mean, when I planted this tomato, I had to dig a hole and plant the tomato. When I harvest my beets, I pull on them and I'm disturbing the soil. Every time you disturb the soil, those wood chips tend to go in underground. That's not good for the nitrogen level in the soil. On the other hand, straw is really hard to dig in. So no matter what I'm doing, the straw always seems to sit on top of the soil. That's why I use straw in my vegetable garden and wood chips in my ornamental beds where I'm doing very little digging. And even there, if I'm planting something, I'll scrape the wood chips away, do my planting, and move them back. Try not to get those wood chips buried. But quite honestly, the best mulch is the one that you can easily get, and the one that's free. I hope that helps you understand why you should be using mulch. Less watering, a lot less weeding, and you're building soil without doing any extra effort. See you in my next video.